ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। A clarification from Srikant and we'll take the verses. Is lingering, mental reliving and wishful thinking. Is lingering, mental reliving or wishful thinking. Second, involved in creating vasanas or in making it stronger. Also clarify whether vasanas are knowable or the unknowable part. Second point, a factor in keeping us within comfort zones and doesn't allow us to explore. 3, even if not to be deep thinker but to perform karma yoga, we need good quality thinking. To improve upon, can we remove the shallowness by avoiding the lingering? Is lingering mental? See, there are two things. There are various things the mind does. One is the reliving. Reliving as in relation to the past. When I reliving means an experience that has already happened, the mind relives it, goes through it mentally again. That is reliving. Wishful thinking is always not in relation to a past experience. Wishful thinking is always in relation to something future, where you imagine a better future. Mentally, the person lives a better future. Now, that is another aspect of the mind. Reliving. Reliving is one aspect of the mind. Wishful thinking is another aspect of the mind. Reliving in relation to the past experiences. Wishful thinking in relation to a person where he imagines a better life, a better future. Both are distinct and different. In lingering, there is a past experience the mind tries to relive. In wishful thinking, as in a better future, it is just imagining the fulfillment of the desire. Reliving is a past experience. Wishful thinking is imagining my desire is fulfilled and how it would be. In both the cases, what happens is, though these are two distinct different things, the consequences of both is involved in creating vasanas or making it stronger. The consequence remains the same. Whether vasanas are knowable or unknowable. Vasana, yes. Can you, how to make him unmute? Test record.
Yes, sir. Yeah. In chronology of thinking, you explained this vasanas, thought, desire, and action.
Yes.
So, cyclical, and again that creates a new vasana. So thereby we get new thoughts. So now I feel that this lingering is also having an effect over vasanas. Does it have that?
Yes. Vasanas, lingering strengthens the vasanas. Lingering makes the vasanas stronger and stronger. Lingering will make the vasanas stronger.
Does it create vasanas also?
Yes, it does create. It does create vasanas. One is it strengthens the existing vasanas. Another possibility is it can create a new vasana. Like for example, I don't have any past experience of having a Belgian chocolate, let us say. I don't have any experience of that experience of what is that chocolate. Now I can have that chocolate and relive that experience and develop a new vasana for having more and more of the chocolate. It is possible. It can be an existing desire or it can be developing a new vasana. Both are possible. It is involved in creating vasanas, making it stronger. Yes, both are possible. Also clarify whether vasanas are knowable or unknowable part. Thoughts and desires and actions are conceivable, knowable. Vasanas are unknowable. For the formula is this: anything manifest is what the intellect can conceive. Anything unmanifest, the intellect cannot conceive. Vasana being unmanifest, the intellect have no access to it. The intellect cannot conceive of it. So only when it surfaces at the level of the thought, it knows. So the vasana part of it is always unknowable. Thought, desire and action is knowable. Because thought, desire, action is the manifest part. Vasana is the unmanifest part.
We can track it, no, sir?
Sorry?
We can track it.
Like you can track the, you can track your thoughts and desires. You cannot track the vasana.
When we get a thought,
yes,
it's because of a vasana.
Yes, we can project it like that. When we get a thought, I can always say this thought comes from a vasana. I can project it like that. So based on the manifestation only, I can project the unmanifest. It was there from the vasana only, this thought came, is what I can project only when the thought surfaces. Only when the thought manifests, I can work backwards and say, yes, this is a vasana.
So, because if I know that lingering would be, what is that I am lingering?
Yes.
What is the visual thinking I am having? I would be knowing about it. So, when a thought comes like this, I can just go back, see what I have lingered and can avoid it.
Yes, correct. Yes, yes. When a thought surfaces, I know I would have done something in the past. That's why it is surfacing. Otherwise, it wouldn't. Otherwise, it wouldn't surface. So I can always use it as a tool to identify where I am lingering. Yes, you can do that. You can do that. A factor is
lingering a factor. Lingering a factor in keeping us within comfort zones
and doesn't allow us to explore. Now, lingering is not in relation to a comfort zone. Comfort zone is something which is different. What is a comfort zone? Comfort zone is where I have within my boundary, I don't want to explore and go beyond the boundary. That is comfort zone. Now I can keep lingering within the comfort zone also. Now exploration means I am willing to plunge into the unknown. Exploration means willing to plunge into the unknown. When we say unknown, unknown in relation to the doing, unknown in relation to the result. That is what exploration is. What is exploration? Exploration means I get into something, I explore it, not knowing what is going to be I have no idea about the path also. I will have no idea about whether I will get the result or not. Both are unknown. A person has some conviction and courage to plunge into the unknown in this way. Now, comfort zone is a kind of complacency. Comfort zone is kind of a laziness, an intellectual laziness. Comfort zone is a kind of a laziness where a person doesn't want to take that extra step. Why that extra step is because before the person does anything, the mind asks, is there a guarantee that it will work? Are you sure that it will work? In exploration, there is no answer to this. Or in exploration, the answer is it may work, it may not work. It means if it doesn't work means X amount of time, money, effort, all are going to go waste. Now, what comfort zone is not wanting to ensure that nothing should go. I should not lose anything. That is a comfort zone. I don't want to lose anything, even if it means that, even if it means I sacrifice my growth also, it is okay, but I will not want to move out of my safety network, a comfort zone, which is nothing but lack of the fear of failure. What is comfort zone? Comfort zone is nothing but a fear of failure, because so many things goes into a exploration. No, time goes into it, effort goes into it, wealth goes into it, so many things goes into it, and then so much of ego is also in it. You put in your time and effort and money and all that, and then it goes waste. You feel bad about it, and others around you also will laugh at you. So the mind fearing so many of these things will not explore. So lingering has got nothing to do with comfort zone. Don't connect it like that. Lingering is different. Comfort zone is different. The third clarification. Is it okay, Srikanth? The second one?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The third clarification. Even if not to be a deep thinker, but to perform Karma Yoga, we need good quality thinking. Correct. To improve upon, can we remove the shallowness by avoiding the lingering? For a person need not necessarily be a good thinker. When you say a deep thinker, what it means is you may not go so much into the a Sankhya type of a person. A person who is predominantly more active type cannot do that much of deep thinking, which is not wrong, because there are two distinct types of personalities. That's all. Now, a person who is of an active type doesn't need to go so much into whatever is the deeper thinking is. But you are right. He also needs to know. He also needs to have a powerful intellect. He also needs to have an intellect. For that person who needs that intellect, to improve upon the quality of thinking, does lingering help in improving the quality of thinking? It has an indirect help. It doesn't help directly. When I avoid lingering, to that extent, I am available in the present. In the present, I still need to make an effort to strengthen the intellect. So, avoiding the lingering itself is not a direct cause and effect. When I avoid lingering, the direct effect of lingering is I am not strengthening my vasanas. A person may not have strengthened the vasana, but still be a very poor thinker. May not have so much, he may not do, he may avoid lingering and all, but still I'm using intellect, I'm using thinking in the sense of no higher ideals and all that. I'm using intellect in that context. A person may avoid lingering and be a very disciplined person within the boundaries of the world. But still, we will not call him as having a deep, we will not say he has a quality thinking. Why? Because unless the intellect is developed, he would not be convinced to do karma yoga. Unless a person has a decent, powerful, strong enough, a decent, strong intellect, he would not be able to convince himself to do karma yoga. So, for karma yoga, directly that person has to worry about developing and strengthening the intellect. One of the methods that he is talking about in lingering is a very practical method in ensuring that the desires don't get strengthened. Desires do not get strengthened. Adukku mela lingering has no role. But that doesn't mean the complacency of the intellect will go away. When I'm avoiding the lingering, what am I doing in the present? I'm avoiding the lingering. That is one side of it. Having avoided the lingering, what is it that I'm doing now? That determines. Seriya?
That itself is going to be of great help.
Yes. If you can avoid the lingering, so much of betterment in terms of time and effort and wealth and all that you will be saving. If you just avoid lingering. If you can just avoid lingering, so much you would be saving. So in that way, lingering has a very good practical utility, even if the person is not a spiritual seeker. Even if the person is not a spiritual seeker, still it has a utility.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, Chief.
Solda. Jeep, solda. Unna mute பண்ணிருக்காங்க unna unmute பண்ணனும் இப்போ பயங்கர ஷார்ப்பா இருக்காங்க சொல்டா.
That day you said the story about horse and the whip, where we consider the horse as intellect.
Buddhas, 3 horses.
Idra?
3 horses in the whip.
Correct. Yeah. 3 types of horses. Yes.
The horse is considered as intellect.
Yes.
What is whip considered as?
What is?
Whip.
The whip part. The whip is you are the horse and whip is the intellect. The intellect, you have to say the comparison unak pannanum abdinaka, you are the horse and intellect is the whip. At the lowest stage, where even if somebody at the lowest stage, where unless you go through actual pain and suffering, the person will not wake up. That is the 3rd type of horse. And the example dana kudukra in the 3 types of horses that Buddha told Ananda. The 2nd type of horse is the sound. Intellect saying don't do it itself is enough. You will behave yourself properly. The highest quality is just the presence, just the intellect watching itself is enough, where the senses and the mind behave. In fact, when you have a very strong intellect, the intellect will not come and say, don't do this, be careful. Just watching it itself is so powerful that the senses and the mind behaves. சரியா?
I had this doubt for so many years.
So
Why
many
is
years.
mind always
உனக்கு என்னடா வயசாகுது?
Huh?
உனக்கு என்ன வயசாகுது? So many yearsன்றான் அதுக்குள்ள. சொல்லு.
13 years ஆகுது. 6 years அந்த டவுட் இருக்கு.
அவ்வளவு வருஷம்டா.
Why mind is always thinking?
Why mind is always thinking? 13 வயசாகி போச்சு உனக்கு. எவ்வளோ வயசுடா அப்பா. சொல்லாத மிச்சவங்களுக்கு எல்லாம் they feel very inferior. என்ன 80-85 எல்லாம் கூட உட்கார்ந்து கேட்டுன்னு இருக்கிறாங்க. When you say 30 long years I have lived. Now what Jeev is meaning by thinking is not thinking. The mind goes on continuously the flow of thought. What is Jeev saying? What is Jeev saying is he's not talking about thinking as in what we mean by the thinking as an intellect. What he means by thinking is mind is a continuous flow of thought. One thought after the other keep coming, and how much ever you want to stop it, it is not stopping. And the continuous flow of thought is what Jeev is calling it as thinking. It is known as the mind, which is the flow of thought. Now, why the mind does it? The flow of thought is because of the power of the desire. The flow of thought, the manifestation of the thought and the flow of thought is always in relation to the power of the desire. That is why if you observe, your thoughts will be circling in a few areas continuously again and again and again and again and again. It will not go all over the place. It will have 2-3 areas or 4-5 areas, and it will circle. And it will circle and it will keep circling in those areas only. Purida? So, the mind is a continuous flow of thought. Mind is a continuous flow of thought. What you need to understand here is indiscriminate continuous flow of thought. You should always remember to use the word indiscriminate flow, not just the flow of thought. அதனால தான் indiscriminate word என்று அப்புறமா add பண்ணேன். Mind is the flow of thought. Now the flow of thought per se is not dangerous. It is the indiscriminate flow of thought. Indiscriminate flow of thought means without any conscious effort and you directing the thought. That is indiscriminate. Discriminate thought means you make an effort and you consciously direct the thought in a particular direction. That is concentration. That you need to do. When it goes all by itself without you being aware of it, that is indiscriminate flow of thought, which is the mind. And why the mind does it? The mind is helpless. The mind is helpless because the mind is helpless. Helpless because of the power of the vasanas, the desires. Yeah.
If we get out of the desires, if we don't have any desire,
yes,
time the mind will not think anything.
Yes. If you don't have the desire, thoughts will not go in that direction. Like for example, basketballyum cricketக்கும் thoughts போயின்னு இருக்கும். ஹாக்கிக்கும் கபடிக்கும் போகவே போகாது. சரியா? டான்ஸ் ஆடுறதுக்கு தாட் போயின்னு இருக்கும். இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்ட் கிட்டார் எடுத்து வாசிக்கிறதுக்கு தாட் will not go. கரெக்டா? என்னடா? புரிஞ்சுதா இப்போ? அவ்வளவுதான், அவனுக்கு புரிஞ்சிருச்சு.
அன்னைக்கு கான்சியஸ்னஸ்க்கு தமிழ் வேர்ட் சொல்றேன்னு சொன்னீங்க.
கான்சியஸ்னஸ் அப்படின்னா பியூர் கான்சியஸ்னஸ் அப்படின்றதுக்கு ஈக்குவலண்ட் தமிழ் வேர்டு எனக்கு யாரும் அமைச்சு கொடுத்தாங்க. அது தூய உணர்வாம். I am still not convinced about that word, but still pure consciousness is தூய உணர்வு அப்படின்னு சொல்லியிருக்கிறாங்க. And I checked with two Tamil people also. They also said the same thing. But personally, I am not yet convinced about that word, because அதுல அந்த ஃபீலிங்ன்ற ஒரு வேர்ட், ஃபீலிங்ன்ற ஒரு இம்ப்ளிகேஷன் வருது. The feeling or implication வருது. But still it is a very close Tamil word. Consciousness அப்படிங்கிறதுக்கு தூய உணர்வு அப்படின்னு ஒரு வார்த்தையாது. சரியா? சுரேஷ் is helping me by saying உள் உணர்வு அப்படின்னு ஒரு வார்த்தை போட்டிருக்கிறாங்க. விஜயரங்கன் is saying மெய் உணர்வு. எல்லாமே அந்த உணர்வுன்றதோட தான் அசோசியேட் ஆகுது. The very word consciousness in Tamil language. சரியாடா? When I talked about the joy of Bhakti Yoga, you said the very fact he wants to experience the transient joy, experienced through singing about the Lord, once again is due to the intellect, but isn't it not due to the lingering of the joy attained through this activity for the mind and not due to the intellect? Joy attained through the world or hymns is one and the same. Joy is joy, correct. Isn't it not due to this useful attribute of the mind that he wants to experience joy through these hymns once again? Trying to control the lingering nature of the mind may be too hard. Rather, he uses his very nature of the mind to experience this higher. If that's the case, why practice this difficult practice of controlling the lingering nature of the mind when it can be directed to the higher? What Sri Ram is saying is, first thing, the joy of singing a hymn. The joy of singing a hymn. Now, the joy is of two possibilities in the joy. One is the melody, the tune, the raga and all that. Another is the meaning. Now, when there is a joy that you derive through the meaning of it, it means it is the function of the intellect there, because it is the joy there is the function of the intellect, because it is recognizing the meaning, and the meaning is always about the futility of the world. No, the meaning is always about the meaning is always about the futility of the world or a glory of the Supreme. So either way, one kind of joy is through that, another kind of joy is through the tune, the raga, the melody and all that. Now, in Bhakti Yoga, the joy is a combination of both. He knows the raga, he knows the tala, he knows the tune, and he knows the meaning too. So that meaning, what is it, the actual joy there? You just sing. For example, Chakkani Rajan or Vati Padita, there is no joy. The same word you sing for 20 minutes, the joy. The same thing you sing for 20 minutes, there is the joy. Now, that joy there is because of the manana reflection. So it is not just the singing. Instead of using the word mananam, the mananam is so much indirectly taught without teaching the word manana. That is why a person who is not trained in classical Carnatic music, they will say, why can't he finish the song in 2 minutes and go to the next song? Most of the classical musicians themselves don't know the true purpose of this repetition. Repetition is mananam. So when he is so engrossed in that, when we say engrossed means when he is so much concentrating on that, what happens? By and by, even him without knowing, a vairagya develops. By and by, even without him knowing, a vairagya develops. Which the practitioner of Bhakti Yoga doesn't know how it is working. He only knows these two. What? He was singing the law, he was singing continuously, and he has developed vairagyam. What we are saying is, we are explaining what the process is, how it happened. There are a few, when I say few means, there are a majority of people who may not want to know all these details. They only want to develop this vairagyam. So that is how Bhakti Yoga develops vairagya. Because of, when I say, okay, even chanting the Rama's name, now the motivation and inspiration of Rama's name will come only when you know the story of Ramayana, no? When you know the character Rama. So when you are saying Rama, 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 mentally what are you identifying with mentally? Mananam. The character, how he is unaffected in all the situations. See, even today, Rama is so much of a wonderful character because how he could remain unaffected. How he could remain unaffected when he is doing everything. See, a person can remain unaffected by not doing anything. Here is a person who is in the middle of everything, doing everything. With Krishna, we find it difficult to accept because Krishna always demonstrated that he is slightly above all of us from the beginning.
Right.
He always demonstrated that. He says, I am slightly above that kind of, he is extraordinary in a totally different way. Now, Rama is so beautiful because he is like any one of us, but going through like a human being, an unaffected state, doing what he ought to do. Now he brings like, he becomes an ideal. So when I say Rama, in a flash, I remember the whole thing, which is what Bhakti Yoga is all about. So in this case, it is not just the joy of music. It is not just the joy of music. It is him. It is the principle that he is living for. That is the inspiration here. So in that way, Bhakti Yoga is a function of. In that way, Bhakti Yoga is not a mere superficial excitement, not a mechanical chanting. It is a play of. It is the function of the intellect there. The difficulty is that person wouldn't know all of them.
Okay.
What in Vedanta we do is, because all this help is done by the great rishis, no, all these great thinkers. Now, what these great thinkers have done, what these great thinkers did is, they knew that one section of the human being cannot be motivated to reason, analysis, thinking, and all that naturally. But then they can't be left behind. They also need to follow the path of evolution. So what they did, the process of mananam was brought into their discipline also.
Hmm.
That is why a true bhakta derives strength. What is the strength? He would say, ராமருக்கு பட்ட ராமருக்கு வந்த கஷ்டத்தெல்லாம் கூட எனக்கு என்ன வந்துருச்சு. He will not go to Rama and say, why are you not removing my pain? He will not ask that question. He will say, compared to the pain and difficulties that he went through, what am I going through? This is how in Bhakti Yoga also the play of the intellect is there, not just a superficial, not just a superficial emotion. Today, what the difficulty is, it has become just a superficial excitement, which is not Bhakti Yoga in the true sense, because I will go to Rama and say, I am worshipping you. No, since I am worshipping you, you have failed in your duty of protecting me. Since I am worshipping you, you are not protecting me. You have failed in your duty of protecting me. A Bhakta says, when you yourself have gone through, Bhadrachala Ramadas writes beautiful hymns. He says, what is the difficulty that you went through? Compared to that, what am I going through? 14 years in forest is not a picnic, no. 14 years in forest. See, today we think Rama went for a picnic for 14 years. No. In fact, Dasharatha want to send Rama for a picnic. He said, let 1,000 horses go, let 100 elephants go, let 500 people go with Rama, making him comfortable in the forest. Kaikeyi turned back and said, what are you doing? He has to go to the forest, means he has to go to the forest. So a person really, now what is forest means? 14 years of forest, na, chances of that fellow coming back alive is very remote. Instead of saying, murder Rama and give Bharata the throne, send Rama 14 years to forest. Now, why they are well crying is because they knew what it is to go to the forest for 14 years.
14 years.
So a Bhakta understands all that. So it means there is a powerful intellect functioning in him also. But where he will not be able to do is, if you ask him to explain in the way that we are explaining, he may not be able to do it. He may not be able to explain how the chanting the Lord's name has brought Vairagya to him. எப்படி ராமா ராமான்னு சொல்லிட்டு இருந்ததுலே எப்படி வைராகியம் வந்ததுன்றது he will not be able to explain. Here we explain that also. Here we say it was designed in such a way so that he should necessarily get vairagya.
The question also came in one sense, Aravindan uncle, from the example of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He became so attached to the idol of Kali, and that is adoda irukkiradha he gave him joy. In the final step, when Kali herself came, he couldn't see her because he was so attached to it.
Correct.
So that attachment, that lingering, that always thinking about that on the initial part was so helpful to him to get to that stage.
Yes, correct.
And then in the final stage, he couldn't see and he was crying and lamenting in one sense.
Correct.
So I felt like this joy of this lingering, this attachment to the higher was so beneficial. அதை விட்டுட்டு நம்ம இனிஷியலாவே முதல்ல இருந்தே இதை எப்படியாவது கண்ட்ரோல் பண்ணோம், லிங்கரிங்க இது அதுன்னு பண்றது ரொம்ப கஷ்டமான விஷயமா இருக்குமே முதல்ல.
It is very beneficial to Ramakrishna because it brought him to that height of detachment. It brought him to the height of detachment and single pointedness.
Correct.
It brought him to that height.
Right.
That height and single pointedness is the true purpose of bhakti. In Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's case, in his individual case of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, because of whatever the Purva Karma or whatever it is, he didn't use the bhakti for any selfish, self-interested purposes. He had never asked Kali for ensure that my bread and butter is saved. He never asked Kali that protect my family also. That Vairagyam by birth itself he had. By birth itself he had that Vairagyam. Like Tyagaraja had this Vairagyam from the very beginning itself. In the case of where Vedanta comes and cautions is, if through bhakti, if Vairagyam is your if developing Vairagyam is your goal, it will not be called lingering, it will be called manana. In the case of somebody else, in the case of so many people today, it will not be so much of Vairagyam as the goal, it is so much result orientation. So when result orientation or seeking result itself seems to be the goal for Bhakti Yoga, Vedanta cautions to say this is not Bhakti Yoga this is not Bhakti Yoga at all in the first place. That is the only difference. The only difference here is he doesn't even emotion is directed towards what goal. That's what it boils down to. If developing Vairagyam and detachment is the goal, Bhakti Yoga is Bhakti Yoga. If not, it is not Bhakti Yoga at all. And most of the people who get into this emotion called devotion nowadays don't have this knowledge of bhakti should lead to bhakti must lead to what? See, bhakti is not about having darshan of God. People think bhakti means darshan of God. No. Bhakti means Vairagyam. Bhakti must lead to Vairagyam. And this Vairagya alone will take you towards liberation. Therefore, this person who is doing this Bhakti Yoga, in the beginning itself we say, make proper use of the devotion. Make proper use of the devotion. In that aspect only, it is talked about devotion. When proper use of devotion is not made use of, like when we say proper use of devotion means the goal of Vairagyam and liberation, then that Bhakti Yoga itself becomes just an emotional excitement which is of no use. Therefore, in that angle we say, therefore, from that perspective, it is always said, this emotion of bhakti has to be carefully understood first. This emotion of bhakti has to be understood first. What is that understanding? The understanding is bhakti must lead to Vairagyam and Vairagyam to moksha, liberation. A bhakta will say darshana of God is moksha for him. He will not say self-realization, God realization and all. Darshan of God is moksha for him. Now, that darshan of God should not be the mind's hallucination. the darshan of God must be preceded by a lot of single pointedness, vairagya, detachment, and whatever he calls as the qualities of a bhakta. So when all this is what is the end is, we will say the word lingering will not come into bhakti yoga there. We will not use the word lingering there. We would use the word mananam there. We will not use the word lingering. We will use the word manana there. Where we use the word lingering is when the higher goal itself is not there and the mind has just developed a like for that feeling. And the mind has just developed a like for that feeling, which gives it a high. Which gives it a high, which is not bhakti yoga at all, because very soon that high will become, very soon that high will taper down. Very soon that high will lose its virium, will lose its strength. Therefore, in the true bhakti yoga, chanting the Lord's name is manana. Is manana there, because it is not just the Lord's name, it is the qualities that is associated with that name. So next time when he chants it, he is that much more inspired.
Then why do they say in this Kali Yuga, Namasmaranam can take you to liberation, moksha is the easiest way, this is and all that. Even though you don't truly associate with the feeling and everything, people keep chanting over and over and over again.
That is, in the age of Kali, Nama Sankirtana is the easiest path to moksha. Now, for this statement, there is no pramanam for it. There is no authority for it. There is no authority for it. There is no pramanam for it. Or the only pramanam they quote is Parikshit. In the course of Shuka Brahma Rishi giving the Bhagavatam story to Parikshit, one of the statements that he makes is this. Krishna seems to say, Na aham vasami vaikunte na yogi hridayena bhav mad bhaktaha yatra gayanti tatra tishtami narada. This is the authority avungalukku. This comes as one of the verse. Na aham vasami vaikuntena, I don't live in Vaikunta. Na yogi hridayena, not in the heart of the yogis. Mad bhaktaha yatra gayanti, wherever my devotees sing my praise, tatra tishtami narada. You will be sitting and singing, I will be standing and listening. This is what Lord has said. Therefore, don't worry about anything. Now, this is what we call as the fallacy of taking a statement out of context and blowing it up. It is a statement made in a particular context and it is very meaningful and relevant within that context. Supposing if I say there is no such thing called God, it is your hallucination. You can take that statement out of context and say Vedanta says there is no God at all. Are you able to follow what I am saying? A statement that is said in a context is taken out of context and it is made into a principle, which is a wrong thinking and misleading.
Specious reasoning, perfect example.
Yes, it is misleading. What here we take from the Bhagavad Gita, from the Upanishads and all that is, it is it is a necessary, it is a path that is also, it is a path that also a human being has to practice. But you cannot say that only that to the exclusion of everything else can give moksha.
Could you just repeat that once again, Kadasi bit?
The last statement that I said is, you can't say to exclude all other yogas. You don't have to do anything else and do only this. You will attain moksha. It means you have to ask them, what is your definition of moksha? That is why sometime back in one of the classes I said, we need a clarity on the word
Moksha.
We need a clarity on the word moksha itself in the first place. The problem here is we don't have, even though all use the same word, they don't mean the same thing. So when the very meaning itself is different, we can't compare the two. Like the same English word will have a different meaning when it used in the legal terminology. The same English word will have a different meaning in the medical terminology. No. Because of this confusion only, they sat and devised a separate English called legal English, medical English. Why? Because the words have this difficulty. So when they say this, the first question that I would ask myself is, what is the definition of? In fact, why I am saying all this is, I was with so many other groups before coming into all this. I asked them also, Ninga moksha na enna solren? The answer is, இந்த கேள்விலாம் கேட்கவே கூடாது. யார் இந்த கேள்விலாம் கேட்க சொல்லி கொடுக்கிறா? Who is teaching you to ask this question? I said, nobody is teaching me. I'm asking. It is coming to me now, know what to do. You follow? So, Bhakti Yoga is an essential tool for Manana. Bhakti Yoga is an essential tool for Manana, which people miss completely. To that extent, Bhakti Yoga is very relevant. But to say it means, Mananam means the goal, the lakshya, all that is very clear, no? But most of the time, the Bhakti indradhula vandu people don't use this. Most of the time, people don't connect Bhakti Yoga with any of these. Since they do not connect any of these, we say, unless you are connecting it, it cannot be called as Bhakti Yoga. It is just another form of entertainment. I can go to entertain myself in a Michael Jackson concert, or I can go to entertain myself in a Sanjay Subramaniam concert. Both are entertainment only from that angle. From that angle, just because I go to Sanjay Subramaniam Carnatic concert doesn't make me superior, or the person who is going to Michael Jackson concert is inferior, indulgent. It doesn't mean that, because both are looking for entertainment only. When the accent is not on entertainment but on developing vairagya, it turns into Bhakti Yoga. So in true Bhakti Yoga, we will not use the word lingering. In true Bhakti Yoga, we will use the word Mananam. That is why when we were children, all the stories were taught to us when we were children itself. So that when we Ramana, we know what Rama is now. We know how everybody tempted him to come back, and yet he stood by that Satyam. He stood by all that. So whenever I see Rama, whenever I say Rama, why we keep all our names as the names of God and goddesses? In the tradition, in the tradition, even the name, yeah, I don't know whether it is true or not, I told my friend, Path Soldan correct. One of the CEO has kept the son's name as some number 2.0 something A B something. He said, another friend sent me. I said, it's not wrong. Here we deliberately keep the Lord's name. Why? Here we deliberately keep the Lord's name as an identity. Why? Because whenever we say that name, we don't look at that person, we understand the divine.
And the qualities
So the culture itself was a built-in manana. The entire culture of us was a built-in manana. Not understanding the built-in manana thing, they say, no, why don't we have the freedom to do what we want to do? Say, you can have the freedom to do what you want to do, and you can keep a name as plastic bucket also. What is wrong in that? Paravindan vechana, Sri Ram vechana, Radha Krishnan vechana, plastic bucket vechana. All means some identity. But why do we keep it like this? Because of this principle. Now I am telling you the principle. Mind works based on the principle of the law of association. Mind works based on the principle of the law of association. Therefore, manana means they want the mind to associate with divine all the time. Why? Because this is the way where culturally mananam was built in culturally. Over a period of time, we have lost it. That's a different story. I'm not getting into the politics of why we lost it and all that. How it was built in is what I'm saying. Like one of the most absurd ritual is the Ayuda Puja, no? Spanner ko cutting player, why do you have to sit and do the puja for the spanner and the cutting player for and all that? A recognition. What is the recognition? The recognition of the divine support. The recognition of the divine support. So what they did, they ensured that our lifestyle itself was a built-in manana. Why I'm spending some time on this is everybody must understand, all of us should understand how our culture itself was a built-in reflection. Why the built-in reflection is because the goal was established clearly from the beginning. What is the goal? The formula they said very clearly. What is the formula? Number 1. Jantunam naranam durlabham. First formula. Amongst all the species, to be born as a human being is unique. They didn't say superior, they said unique. Every species is unique. The poison of a scorpion is unique to the scorpion. The poison of cobra is unique to the cobra. So in that way, every species is unique. But then what is the uniqueness of a human being? The uniqueness of the human being is the freedom that he can exercise. And that freedom must be channelized. If freedom is not channelized, if freedom is not disciplined, channelized, regulated, it turns into destruction. So the human being who got this freedom, when that freedom is not channelized, disciplined, that human being will turn into a Rakshasa. Who's a Rakshasa? A human being who doesn't know how to handle the freedom turns into a Rakshasa. Who is a Deva? A person, a human being who knows how to handle that freedom, discipline that freedom. Ultimately for what? Ultimately for knowing who you are, knowing your true nature. So, when this being the purpose of human life, what they did, they thought about it so deeply and ensured that our lifestyle itself must have a built-in reflection. So everything that we do must be associated with the divine. So what they did, the tallest building in the town must be, இப்போ அதெல்லாம் கிடையாது, இப்போலாம் tallest building வந்து புர்ஜ் கலிஃபாவோ என்னவோ தெரியாது எனக்கு. In the culture, the tallest tower in the town must be the temple tower. அந்த கோயில் கோபுரத்துக்கு மேல எதுவுமே போக கூடாது. Why? Because everywhere you should look up to that. From everywhere you should look up to that. It means that divine was kept as the central thing. And since human beings have this emotion, we can't destroy the emotion, we can't kill the emotion. This emotion also must be used for manana. They ensured how action can be used for mananam, how emotions can be used for mananam. It's a well thought of strategy.
And even Arvind and uncle, mechanical repetition, they try to make the names of the lords like sort of mantra kind of effect, right? Which,
yes,
is that true? Which
no,
helps you even mechanically. It helps you in some ways. Is that the reason why people say Namasmarana also helps? That somehow, even if you say it mechanically, it helps you relatively.
If a person says it mechanically, it will not be of any help. It will not be of any help. To explain this portion, there is a beautiful discourse in the Upanishad. The Shishya goes and asks the Guru, teach me a mantra for meditation. And he looks around, something he has to show. He looks around and he sees a wild buffalo walking. He says, wild buffalo. In the Maharashtra tradition, in the Maratha tradition, Jnaneshwar took it so seriously and he attained moksha through that. It means per se, all words have this potential. There is no particular sound that is special. Any sound you can use for single pointedness and meditation. But why do we say the Lord's name? Is because of the association that goes with it. Of the association that goes with it. Are you able to follow? That is why it is very, very important to, it is why they say it is very important what we associate with. French perfume, naturally association is something.
Class.
Yes, lust. Some triggers lust, some triggers different something. Now what they did is they distinguished all this and they established very clearly. Gandham. We use the for Krishna we use Gandham. Gandha is not French perfume, a different kind of perfume which evokes a Shanti, which doesn't evoke lust. Some kind of food that evokes peace, some kind of food that evokes rajas, some kind of food that evokes base emotions. So what they did, they went into the details of everything. Therefore, they said, since they have gotten into so much of details into everything, that is why we say, Tasmat Shastram Pramanante. It is not just utterance of just one or two persons. It is not just a opinion of one or two persons. It has been well thought of, well explained, a practical way of living, so that remembrance of the divine is not that effort that we have to make today. The effort to remember the divine that we have to make today, in the past they didn't have it because they associated everything with the divine. Are you able to follow?
Yeah.
So, adnala enna eduthu, the mechanical chanting, what they call as intonational effect. Intonational effect itself have a temporary effect, a temporary soothing effect. The sound intonational has a temporary soothing effect. That doesn't mean it has a spiritual value. Like somebody drilling with the driller, somebody is drilling constantly, that is also a sound, but that sound is irritating. Some sound irritates, some sound is a soothing effect. Now that soothing effect is not spiritual effect.
Correct. Exactly. In a spa, you
Yes.
have the soothing music.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean it's spiritual.
Yes, it soothes. Now there the purpose of life itself is make life comfortable, soothing. Here we go one step deeper than that and say the purpose of life is not just to have a good, comfortable, happy life. It is to do something higher than that also. Since we see it from that perspective, we agree to that and we say it is limited also, and we go far above that also. We are not saying intonational effect kadayadhu, intonational effect irukku. And the intonational effect, that intonational effect has been well thought of, and it has been made use of completely in Sanskrit language. The intonational effect has been made much use of it in Sanskrit language. Tamil, to a very large extent, the Tirumular and some of the Shaiva saints did it. They did so much of study and research on the intonational effect of the sound and integrated divine in that. But people taking it to be, today what has happened is, it has become so mechanical and so superficial, or used it for the wrong purposes. The remembrance of the divine is not happening at all. Yeah, are you able to follow?
Yeah.
So intonational effect endradhu onnu irukudhu, but that intonational effect is only a soothing effect, not a spiritual effect. The spiritual effect is what I associate with the name, the higher values that I associate with the name. And when I say the name, I remember those values. And when I remember those values continuously, what happens? Those values becomes my ideal in life. Why do I have to remember all this? Are you able to follow how Manana is built in now? When I continuously repeat it, when I continuously associate with it, that becomes my ideal in life. Instead of saying fix this ideal, they ensure that you are unconsciously let into that. You are so beautifully allowed to naturally grow into that ideal. It's a fantastic,
beautiful
design.
Culture.
Sometimes I regret. இந்த கல்ச்சர்ல வந்து பிறந்துட்டோமே, அந்த கல்ச்சர்ல பிறந்திருந்தா இவ்வளவுலாம் கூட கஷ்டப்பட்டிருக்க வேண்டாமா? I used to think sometimes. Because today it is a struggle about so many things, no? Seriya?
Yeah, and it's so beautiful that in one sense it's also very interesting that, say, attachment masquerades like love, lingering masquerades like mananam. Urmadi is very unless you really go into the depth of it, you don't You sometimes
Correct.
can't separate these things. It's like
Exactly correct.
Maya masquerades so well, and almost it mimics the higher values almost so almost seamlessly that you can easily fall.
Correct. Exactly correct. Adnaladan we have to break our heads to sit and explain explain it. Explain it. You are the connection that you made is perfectly correct. Lingering versus mananam, love versus attachment. It's so masquerade. It's so it mimics that exactly, or it appears to be so. Adagda we need somebody who knows the Shastra, who has spent their whole lifetime on this to come and explain to us. Seriya? Is it okay, Sira?
Yeah. Thank you.
So why I took this time to, because in this classroom so many times people think that Vedanta is against Bhakti Yoga. Vedanta is not for Bhakti Yoga. Vedanta says it is the great Vedantic saints and rishis that brought about this concept of Bhakti Yoga itself. Who devised this Bhakti Yoga? The same rishis devised this Bhakti Yoga. When they devised it, they did it built in manana. Is the mananam is built in. Mananam is built in. That's all. And where mananam is built in, it becomes, for the vast majority who are active type, built-in mananam only will help. For the small minority who are the thinkers, they are the one who can naturally get into this thinking and do all this. Now the vast majority of people are not thinkers, they are actors, active people. And what to do, how to help them out? They can't say you are all inferior people, all of you become thinkers. You can't tell them also. But they also have to be helped for, they also need to be guided for moksha. So what they did, through action, built-in mananam was kept. Through emotion, built-in mananam was kept. In this 12 yajnala, what we are discussing is how this mananam is built in action and emotion. The 12 yajna portion is so beautiful because this 12 yajna portion explains how mananam is built in the action and emotion. That's where it is very important. That's where it is very, very relevant. Sriram. Yeah. Viji, through Bhakti Yoga, if one can develop Mananam, Vairagyam, etc., and eventually Nididhyasanam, then is it not eventually Jnana Yoga? Viji, Nididhyasanam Mandachana, it is Jnana Yoga only. And we need not, here we are not carried away by these terminologies, for we don't have any special attachment to any of these words here, for we are not marketing the word Jnana Yoga here. Eventually, whenever you come into Nididhyasanam, it is Jnana Yoga only. Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. Lokesmin Dvida Nishta Pura Prokta Mayanaga. Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam Karma Yogena Yoginam. To understand Vedanta and the spiritual path, how the path is laid out, verse number 3 of chapter 3 formula. The formula is verse number 3, chapter 3. Eventually, it becomes Jnana Yoga only. Whenever we talk about Nididhyasanam. Therefore, is it not eventually Jnana Yoga? Yes, it is eventually Jnana Yoga. That is where in Atma Bodha he says, in Atma Bodha he says, Sakshan Mokshaika Sadhanam. The direct path for liberation is Jnanam. Sakshan Mokshaika Sadhanam. Pakasya Vakniva Jnanam Vina Moksho na Siddhyati. There is no other path to moksha except knowledge. Correct. Yeah. Is it okay? Now comes Bharat. If one is self-realized, sorry, before I come to Bharat, Vijay. Vijay Rangan. Shall we say God and Godness is an experience? Vijay Rangan. God, Godness is not an experience because experience involves two, subject and object. The subject who is experiencing the object. Now, God is not an object which the subject is experiencing. The duality doesn't exist there. Since the duality doesn't exist there, you cannot say God is an experience. Why? Because the experience, the subject has to use an instrument to experience. The subject has to use an instrument to experience. If you have to hear me, you have to use the ear as an instrument to experience hearing. If you have to see me, you have to use the eyes as an instrument to see me. Now, what instrument can be used to experience God?
It's all five sense objects we can use for.
No instrument. The five sense organs cannot be used. The mind cannot be used. The intellect cannot be used. Therefore, God is not an experience. In the Upanishad, if all the instruments of experience is gone, Maitreyi asked Yajnavalkya this question. In the Upanishad, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, in the conversation, Maitreyi asked Yajnavalkya, then how will I experience? Abdinna, Brahman Garda, how will I experience? Swayam Prakashate Atma. It knows itself by itself. It doesn't need any other instrument to know it. It doesn't need any other instrument to know it. Once you have woken up, you know that you have woken up. Having woken up, you will not ask your Sudha anga illa po illaya, you are in Abu Dhabi, no?
Yes, sir.
Sudha inga dhaan irukkranga.
Chennai.
Chennai la dhaan irukkranga. Yeah. Having woken up, Vijay Rangan will not check with Sudha. Sudha is his wife. Vijay Rangan will not check with Sudha and say, Sudha, have I woken up? Now, you will not ask. Having woken up, you know that you have woken up. You don't need any other instrument to recognize that you have woken up. You know, Swayam Prakashate. It knows itself by itself. Seriya? Bharat. If one is self-realized, the person is in the state of Turiya. How can that person communicate to a waker who is in the other state? He cannot communicate. Bharat, there is no communication at all. The person from one state of consciousness cannot communicate with the person at the lower state. A waker cannot have a conversation with the dreamer, even relatively also. As a waker, I cannot go into the dream state and have a conversation with the dreamer. If so, how can one define liberation as it is not the waking, dreaming or deep sleep? What is the pramanam for liberation as it cannot be associated with the waking world? Very good. What is the pramanam for liberation? What is the pramanam for liberation? The pramanam for liberation is number one, the Vedas. Vedanta is the pramanam. I'll explain that. இது வந்து ரொம்ப basics இது. This basics needs to be, this basic has to be known very clearly. The pramanam for self-realization is, the first pramanam is Vedas, Vedanta themselves. That is why of the very pramanams, Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Agama we say. So Vedanta itself is a pramanam by itself. It is an independent authority. To put it very simply, every pramanam has their field of knowledge, where other pramanams cannot enter. This is logic. For seeing, eyes is the pramanam for rupa. Eyes are the only pramanam for rupa. I cannot use any other pramanam like ears or nose to know the sight, to know the form. The pramanam is the eyes only, and you need to rely only on the eyes. You cannot use anything else for that. Similarly for sound, similarly for emotions, mind is the pramanam for emotions. You can't see emotion through the eyes. So every pramanam has their respective field of knowledge. When it comes to liberation, when it comes to moksha, when it comes to Brahman, what is the pramanam? Shastras is the pramanam. How can we accept Shastram as the pramanam is the next question. First is, Shastram is the pramanam. Are you okay till now? Now, how can we accept Shastram as the pramanam? We have to accept Shastram as the pramanam because to verify, is logic. Extraordinary analysis they do in the Upanishads. This to verify the authority of one pramanam, we can't use the authority of another pramanam. To verify the authority of the sight, the authority of the, can I use another pramanam like ears for that? Cannot. Why? Because that field of activity this pramanam has no access to. Therefore, first thing that we have to recognize is, if I have to accept something as a pramanam, what instrument can be used for that? That's the first logic. Microscope வச்சு planet பார்க்க முடியாது. Telescope வச்சு virus பார்க்க முடியாது. Clear? Are you able to follow? I tell you, these are all my favorite topics. Huh? Whole day I can give logic for this. Beautiful. It's not my logic. None of it. Create panla. It's all in the Upanishads. Great masters have done it so beautifully. So first thing is, if we have to consider something as a pramanam, first thing that you need to know is what is the right instrument that can be used. Number one. Number two is, even if you use the right instrument, you need the authority of somebody who has used it before. Second, whose authority here? for the microscope vandu histopathologist who has done a lot of work already, that person becomes the authority for the instrument to be used. So rendu point idilla, one the instrument, the second is the one who is mastered it in the past. When it comes to self-realization, what is the pramanam? The great rishis is the pramanam first. Guru is the pramanam. Guru is the pramanam. Just as ஆறாம் கிளாஸ்ல நியூட்டன்ஸ் லாவை படிக்கும்போது நியூட்டன் தான் பிரமாணம் அங்க. My understanding is not the pramanam there. Or I just by heart it. I just by heart it without knowing what I am by hearting, write it, and I score 100 marks also out of it. So first is the instrument, the second is the person, the authority of the person. Now comes the third vital factor. Now comes the third vital factor. The authority of the person is acceptable when of the 99 things that he says is right, and one thing that he says is not understandable to me, I have the humility to say, what? Since the 99 things that he is saying is right, this one thing that he is saying also has to be right. I am not able to understand it because I have not developed to that height. Is the third reason. Supposing I say 100 things. Of the 100 things, 98 is false. Then I don't become the authority. Yeah. Of the 100 things that I say, 99 is logical, 99 can be understandable, but one thing is not understandable, and he himself says that it is not understandable because right now you don't have that much of associated knowledge. இப்போ ஐன்ஸ்டீன்ஸ் தியரம் புரியணும்னா அவ்வளோ கால்குலஸ் படிக்கணும், அவ்வளோ பிசிக்ஸ் படிக்கணும், அவ்வளோ மேத்தமேட்டிக்ஸ் படிக்கணும். அப்பதான் it becomes understandable only when I have prepared with so many preparations. So what they say is, it's not that it cannot be understandable. I will help you to experience it and know it for yourself, provided you cooperate with me with the preparatory practices. The Guru says, if you cooperate with me in the preparatory practices, I would help you to experience that. Right now, it cannot be proven because the field of pramanam is different. Lawyer is not the proof for medicine. A doctor is not the proof for something. Now he is an authority in that field of activity only. So, what is the pramanam for liberation? What is the pramanam for liberation? The pramanam is the Shastras, the Guru, and 99 things that they say is perfectly correct. Since the 99 things that they say is perfectly correct, that one thing also must be correct. And the one thing also must be correct nu solrom illaya, adukku per da Shraddha. Shraddhavan labate jnanam, he says. Since 99 things that he is saying is correct, this one thing also has to be correct only. Abdin and the what we call as the benefit of doubt, I give it to him. Benefit of doubt, I give it to him and I pursue what he asks me to do. Na? That is called Shraddha, and Shraddhavan labate jnanam. How Shastram is the Pramanam Rataka, there is a whole lot of an analysis. I am resisting not to go into that analysis. And the Aram site will take another 1 hour. Already 9:59. Already it is 9:15. There is a whole lot of an analysis for that. Step by step they go through. This enga varudhu appadina in the introduction to the Chandogyathila Tattvamasi varudhu. The Tattvamasi portion of chapter 6 of Chandogya is called Sadvidya. Chandogya chapter 6 nu solla maattom adu. We call it as Sadvidya. When he writes a commentary on the Sadvidya, he gives a whole lot of introduction. And the Sadvidya mantra and 6 mantra 9 mantra tha. Not literally 9, because 9 times he repeats Tattvamasi Shvetaketu. For that repetition of 9 times Tattvamasi Shvetaketu, he goes into a detailed introduction. And the introduction associated studies of Tarka Mimamsa Nyaya padichirukonu. The Tarka Mimamsa Nyaya Shastram padikam adala ukkanda, it will go for a spin. One of the days I will talk about it. Some other class I will talk about how it is the Pramanam itself. Once you understand this, you will get conviction in pursuing moksha. ஏன் இவ்வளவு analysis பண்றோம்? Only if you analyze it so much, you will develop a conviction in pursuing moksha. அதுக்குதான். So அதுக்கு என்ன சொல்றா? இதுதான். So Shraddha. So Pramanam enna? Vedas is the Pramanam. Like you do good actions, you will reap the benefit accordingly. You do bad actions, you will reap the benefit accordingly. What is the Pramanam for that? Shastram is the Pramanam for that. Based on the Shastra Pramanam, you can investigate your life and you can conclude, therefore, what they said is correct. Therefore, what they are saying is correct. Now, when I come to the conclusion, therefore, what they are saying is correct, you will not say, therefore, what they are saying is correct in the conclusion. Vanda kuda, that person will still say, Shastram is the Pramanam only. Because, illana plagiarism than other. Oh, gravity and a girkanu purinjittanako kuda, I will still say, whose authority for that? Newton is the authority for that still, even though I have understood it. So the first step is, what is the Shastra, what is the Pramanam for liberation? Vedanta, Vedas, Vedanta is the Pramanam. That is why in the epistemology, the study of logic and reason and analysis. In the Western logic, reason and analysis, Shabda Pramanam ne one irukadu. They will have inductive logic, deductive logic. They will not have the independent authority called traditional. Agami, Shabda we use. So in the Western thinking, they have only inductive, deductive, sensory perception. Moone Pramanam da avala poruthorik. Now, this sensory perception, inductive, deductive is what all sciences is based upon. All the analytical methods of sciences comes from this one. The formula for thinking analysis comes from here. Epistemology no angad. Vedas, we talk about 4 Pramanams, no? We talk about Pratyaksha, inductive, deductive, we talk about that. We use different words, avladha. We say different words. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, we say different words, but we agree to sensory perceptions, inductive, deductive. All these three are there. And we also say there is the fourth one. Why the fourth one? Because the first three is a source of authority for worldly matters. When it comes to divine, God, moksha, pratyaksha, inductive, deductive and all will not help. What will help is the Shastram. Therefore, the Pramanam for, what is the Pramanam for liberation? இந்த மாதிரி கேள்வியா கேளுங்க. I will show off what all I know. இல்லனாக்கா நான் ஷோ ஆஃப் பண்றதுக்கு எனக்கு சான்ஸே கிடைக்க மாட்டேங்குது. How beautiful is this question? And you need to know this. Then only each and every word of Bhagavad Gita we will study with that reverence. இந்த பகவத் புக்க தரகும் போதே ஒரு ரெவரன்ஸ் வரும், ஒரு பக்தி வரும். Because it is the authority, it is a pramanam by itself. Why it is the pramanam? Because it has taken pratyaksha into account, it has taken anumanam, upamanam and all other methods of thinking into account, and it also says something beyond that. Supra-logic, if at all you want to use the word. It is also a logic, if at all you are, because we have to use all modern terminologies nowadays. If at all you want to use, we can use that word also. Doesn't make any difference. But this is the authority for accepting this as this is the logic and reason upon which we accept it as a pramanam. Therefore, what is the pramanam for Shastras? What is the pramanam for liberation? Shastram is the pramanam. And it is not a blind faith. It is not just swallowing a pumpkin. Yeah. முழு பூஷ்ணிக்காய முழுங்க வைக்கிற மாதிரி கிடையாது. To say Shastram is the pramanam, it is not like that. It takes the other three pramanams and it takes into account and it uses the other three pramanams to negate that. So the same Shastra uses pratyaksha, inductive, deductive and all that to negate that. That is why negation is a very important means of thinking in Vedanta. Negation is a very important means of thinking in Vedanta, because through negation only the pratyaksha, anumana, upamana is negated. Yeah. Then with this I conclude. Shruti anugrahita tarkan perocha, logic. It is not just a logic. Shruti anugrahita tarka. Mimamsa ku namaskaraha mimamsa. Look at for logic and reason, look at the adjective they added to it. Beautiful adjectives. Shruti anugrahita tarka. Not Shruti demolishing tarka gadayadu. We don't use logic to demolish it. We don't use logic to disprove it. We use logic to explain the limitation of the instrument. Are you able to follow? Logic is not used to demolish. Logic is not used to prove also. Logic is used only to explain the limitation of the instrument. So when logic is used to prove the limitation of the instrument, which is very understandable, because all instrument will have a limitation necessarily. So மீமாம்சா வரும்போது இல்லையா, நமஸ்காரக மீமாம்சா, அதாவது அனலைஸ் பண்ணும்போது ஒரு வர்ஷிப்ஃபுல் ஆட்டிடியூடோட அனலைஸ். So tarka பண்ணும்போது when we use logic and reason, we use that for a one. It's a yeah. It is. I get personally, it is my area of attachment in the area mattum. This area of Mimamsa, Tarka, Nyaya, Vandurtuna, it is my area of involvement. And Swamiji always, one knock he gives on my head. Ni Pandita Poidova, he will say. He used to say all the time, you will turn in, if you are not careful, you will turn into a Pandit and the purpose will be lost. Purpose will be lost. Now, that is where that becomes the Pramanam. Otherwise, I would have become a Pandit only. Not that I'm any different now. Are you able to follow? What is the Pramanam for liberation? Shastram is the Pramanam for liberation. And when we say Shastram is the Pramanam, you are not asked to swallow a pumpkin, you are asked to swallow a banana. Pumpkin it is impossible. And we say, to disprove it, you should not use to disprove the logic. To disprove the Pramanam of one, you can't use some other Pramanam. Sound vechi color disprove panna mudiyadhu. Idu orange nu prove pandradhukku you need only you have to use only that corresponding instrument. To say whether it is orange or not அப்படிங்கிறதுக்கு நான் டங் யூஸ் பண்றேன்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. நான் சவுண்ட் யூஸ் பண்ணி இது ஆரஞ்சா இல்லையான்னு சொல்றேன்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. Are you able to follow? So in the traditional Gurukula, what they do is, before you are exposed to the study of Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads ella, in the basic formulas எல்லாம் சொல்லி கொடுத்துருவா first. So since these basic formulas are all taught first, and when you study the Bhagavad Gita or the Upanishad, the reverence that you have for the text itself is, the approach and the reverence itself is different. Like how a scientist will walk into the lab, enna oru reverence oda he will walk into that lab. He has an extraordinary reverence when he walks into the lab. Yeah, he has that reverence. Similarly, when we touch the Bhagavad Gita book or the Upanishad eduthu tarandamna, we will have that reverence. Ipo vandu we just have a superficial mechanical reverence, avladha, or depth illa adilla. There is no depth in it. Because of the lack of depth, we are not able to grow also. Yeah, Bharat. Very good. I like this question very much. What is the Pramanam for liberation? In a waking state of Pramanam kadayadu. Dream and deep sleep is not the Pramanam. Now, what is the Pramanam? Chariya, are you okay with it? I tried to, and whatever the logic and reason is, I have just covered the basic 3 steps. From this, you can develop more and more.
Exactly. Thank you.
This you can develop more and more. But the formula I give.
Correct, Guruji. I completely, this in my humble this thing. See, we have to approach it the right Shraddha. So we are talking about liberation. We are talking about some. I don't want to repeat what I asked, but the reason why I've asked is we are all looking at one simple underlying principle. How do we realize oneself, right?
Correct.
Now, books are saying, we are saying, now Paramacharya, நம்ம அவரோட புஸ்தகம் இல்ல நம்ம ஆதிசங்கரோட புஸ்தகம் பாஷ்யம் எல்லாம் இருக்கு, எல்லாமே சொல்லிட்டு இருக்கா, இவெல்லாம் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் சொல்லியிருக்கான்னு சொல்லியிருக்கான். But question is, they are in a different state. They are communicating to us. Is it what my understanding of what they are saying? I feel. So I'm not able to understand what is that, because we are in a different state. And Swamiji completely says that you're in a waking state to dreaming. What are we doing? I mean, we knock and say this is right, but it's not right. And I go back to the same Maya theory and the other things, right? Intrinsic extension.
Correct.
So it's a confusion. So I have to do some more manana. Thanks to you. You have given me a foothold.
In the angle of Pathilna, இப்போ லிபரேஷன்ல ஸ்ரத்தா வரணும்னா சாஸ்திரம்ல ஸ்ரத்தா வரணும்.
Exactly.
அதுதான் சீக்வன்ஸ். இப்போ லிபரேஷனுக்கு ஸ்ரத்தா வரணும்னா பிரமாணம்ல ஸ்ரத்தா வரணும். அந்த பிரமாணம்ல ஸ்ரத்தா வரணும்னா அந்த பிரமாணத்தை பத்தி பேசுறவர் மேலயும் ஸ்ரத்தா வரணும்.
Exactly. நிறைய இருக்கு. So எல்லா சேனல் ஆமா.
It's a commitment over janmas.
Exactly.
Moksha is a commitment over janmas. It's not just one janma commitment. It's a commitment over many janmas that I have to take. Moksha andradhu. So adukku lot of shraddha is required. So shraddha means இப்போ சாஸ்திரம்ங்கிறதுல ஸ்ரத்தா வரணும்னா இல்லையா, மோக்ஷத்துல ஸ்ரத்தா வரணும்னா சாஸ்திரம்ல ஸ்ரத்தா வரணும். சாஸ்திரம்ல ஸ்ரத்தா வரணும்னா the person who is talking about it, and that person also you need to have a shraddha. So and the person மேலயும் ஸ்ரத்தா வரணும்னா அந்த பர்சனோட ஒரு அசோசியேஷன் வேணும்.
Exactly.
இல்லையா, அந்த பர்சனோட அசோசியேஷன் வேணும். அசோசியேஷன் வச்சிருந்தாலே அந்த பர்சனை பார்த்து ராங் டீடைல்ஸ் தான் நிறைய தெரியுது இல்லையா. சோ அதனாலதான் நதி மூலம் ரிஷி மூலம் எல்லாம் பார்க்க கூடாதுன்றது அதுதான். Every rishi will have a past.
Yeah.
Just as every sinner has a future, every saint has a past. Yeah. See, Valmiki had a past. What is the problem in that? What is the problem in agreeing to that? Yeah, you follow what I'm saying? So,
yes.
in the liberation garudhula ivlo irukku. So, to summarize the sequence, to have shraddha on liberation, you need to have shraddha on the shastram. To have shraddha on the shastram, you need to have shraddha on the person who is talking.
Authority. Yeah.
Authority. And you can't have multiple authorities. ஏன்னா மெடிசன்ங்கிறதுக்கு 10 டாக்டர் கிட்ட போக முடியாது இல்லையா. Ultimately we have to rely on
one doctor
only. Similarly, we can't have multiple authorities. Today the biggest problem that we are having is the ego and our doubt of the mind so much that we can't rely on one authority. The doubts that we have is so much that it is difficult to accept one authority. Like even the spiritual pathway, you can't have karma yoga for authority, bhakti yoga for authority, jnana yoga for authority, japa yoga for authority, meditation for authority, nama sankirtana for authority. You can't have very many authorities like that. You have to have, it has to be
one.
It has to be one singularly. And how to find that one? Yaar thalayila nariya kuttine irukangalo, they are safe na artham. Who is safe in that? Na who keeps knocking more is safe. Who agrees with you a lot na jagrathiya irunga avarta.
ஆமா கரெக்ட்.
யாராவது உங்களோட அக்ரிமெண்ட் பண்ணிட்டா பி அவள்கிட்ட ஜாகிரதையா இருக்கும். ஏன்னா it is a person who keeps knocking on the head, that's the guru. Ida sequence சரியா? Is it okay, Bharat?
Thank you, sir.
In some other context I will take it up. It's one of the beautiful analysis that everybody needs to understand. It's still a basic misconception, just as Sri Ram brought about a very good aspect about the bhakti and the sankirtan and all that. Now you brought about a very good angle about what is the pramanam. How we can't, how if we have multiple pramanam, the doubts only will increase. இல்லையா, 10 டாக்டர் கிட்ட போனா கூட கடைசியா ஒரு டாக்டரை நம்பிதான் ஆகணும். So you have to boil down to, you have to ultimately hold on to
one.
Hold on to one. சரியா?
Okay, sir.